Did you know that you can deep link in Power Apps Code Apps? In today's video, we'll show you how.
Thanks, Josh. So what is deep linking? We've created this diagram for you to hopefully make it really simple to understand. Essentially, you can imagine it like this. So we've got an email that comes in. That email has a link in it. You click on that link, and then it opens up the app. So in our instance, this is a code app. And it takes you immediately to the record that you want to go to. So you don't have to click through to the records. And the way that it's doing that is it's reading a parameter from the URL, the website link. So like if we look on the left-hand side there where it says record ID 12345, we're passing that through, and that's the way to get to the record. And our code app will essentially extract that information, and then it will know this is the record the user wants to go to. It will navigate them to that page and load the record.
Makes sense to me. There's a little bit of plumbing that needs to get done to make this an actuality, isn't there? Where do we begin with that?
Yeah, so let's have a look at the docs. So there isn't much in the way of documentation from Microsoft so far on deep linking. You probably wouldn't find it unless you know specifically what you're looking for. Essentially, it's called context data as far as Code Apps is concerned. And there's this article here. It's under, in the Code Apps documentation, it's under develop and then get context data. And then if you scroll down a bit, you reach a point where you can see what information you can get from the context data. So context data is essentially like, what's the context of this page that I'm on? And so within that, we get things like the environment ID, app ID, those kinds of things. We also get something called query params or query parameters. And it's those parameters that we're wanting to get access to. So if I scroll down a little bit more, you can see that we've got query params here, and the description is the query parameters added to the URL. So if at the top here, we've got, say this says source equals docs, if you can manage to see that, because that's quite small. So that source equals docs is the kind of information that we can get in our code app. Anything after that question mark. So what we would get through is that the key is source and then the value is docs. And we can put anything in there that we want to.
Nice. So that makes sense. We just need to add that to into our URL for our app with our query parameters, and we will be able to let users click a link in an email, and they'll get taken straight to the app with the context of that record open. And that's really cool. So it means that if you're doing things like approvals, or, you just need to view, in our case, we're going to use assets. You need to go straight to an asset to see that. It'll be right there when you open up the apps. Documentation is really useful to kind of understand the concept. We've got our assets app open here. And what next?
So yeah, just a quick explanation as to what this app is. It's an app for keeping track of assets in a company. So we've got things like laptops, monitors, that kind of thing. And what we want to do is when we assign one of these assets to someone, we want them to get an email, which we did in our Power Automate video. So that's all sorted. But we want them to be able to click on the link in the email to take them through to the asset itself so that they can view all of the details for it. So we need to create that side of things. Now, in Power Automate, Josh, you've already sorted this out for us, haven't you? So if I go to edit in the Outlook action, you've already configured the hyperlink. So if I change that into code mode, maybe it's a little bit difficult to see, but basically we've got the link to our app here, and then we've added this and amp colon, which is ampersand. So that's the name for an and, but in HTML version. And then we've put in our trigger of text. So basically the text that we're feeding in, which is our item ID here, we're then passing that through to that URL. Maybe a little bit complicated, but you can always get AI to do this for you.
And we explained this in our last video as well. So if you haven't watched that, go and watch it. It'll give you a bit of context in terms of how we've wired the Power Automate flow up. We're now just taking that to the next level and adding an actual hyperlink there. So that's the fun part.
Yeah, exactly. So now if we have a look at this here, so I've opened Codex. You can use whichever coding engine you want to use or harness. Claude Code, GitHub Copilot, really doesn't matter. So for this one, we're just going to use Codex, and we're just using GPT 5.5 on medium. We could probably get away with low intelligence even on that, because it's a relatively simple thing it needs to do. So what we're saying is we want it to include deep linking in the app so that we can view a record directly from a link. And then I'm saying, please, can you incorporate the query parameters and routing to make this happen? So I'm saying routing because it needs to route the person to the right page. Or if it does, maybe for our asset register, it doesn't actually need to do that. And then I'm saying, here are the docs if you need them. It's always a good idea to give AI the docs if it doesn't have the context. Code apps are brand new. It doesn't know how they're supposed to be built. So we're giving it the docs. We could potentially use the plugin, but from my last checking of the plugin, it doesn't tell the app how to use context. So that's why we're doing that with that. So we'll get that running. Okay. So it says it's implemented deep linking. What changed? So it's going to get the query parameters that we talked about. It's supporting asset ID equals and then the ID, but it also is supporting record ID and just plain old ID. It opens the matching asset directly, and it does it from the detail drawer, which we haven't demoed, but we'll show that. And then it falls back to fetching the individual asset by ID if it's not already in the list. It keeps the URL in sync. So when you're selecting or closing an asset, which is important. So if you close an asset and then you refresh the page, you don't want it to reopen the asset. We'll see if it actually manages to do that because it's trying to do some quite complex things. It's actually thinking about edge cases, which is really nice. And then the build has passed, so we're ready to test.
Sounds good. Let's go.
So what we need to do, actually, what I would love to do is let's get our terminal open, and then let's build this and push it. So if I just clear our terminal and make sure that you can all read this. So we'll do npm run build, which is going to build it. And then we're going to do, I already have it here, npx power apps push, to then push it into the environment with the latest changes. So we could test this locally if we wanted to, but I want to test it actually in the main app itself. So we've got, that's the local version there. We're going to take the published version here and we're going to try it with that. And it's saying there's a new version, so we can refresh that. And then it's loaded our assets. So Josh, I'm going to borrow this MacBook Pro from you if that's okay. So then I choose myself, save changes. Takes a little while to do that. It's using the connector for Power Automate. It's done that. So then hopefully I get an email, an item has been assigned. And then when I click on it, if all things are going well, then it opens up the app with the MacBook Pro already open, just like that.
That's really cool.
So just to prove that it does work, why don't we try using something else? Like if I get the Logitech sent to me as well, just to prove that this is definitely something that we've implemented here. So if I close these tabs and then now I've got a new email and I click on this and then it should automatically open up the Logitech, which it does. So it's working perfectly. And wow, that was simple.
Quick as well. I think that's something to highlight is there was no loading screens or anything there. It just opened up straight away. It almost feels like it's not real. I think if you come from an Amazon background, you almost expect to see loading spinners, but yeah, it was instant, which is fantastic.
Yep. And just to show here, so this is where it's doing that magic of asset ID equals. We're passing in that GUID. And then Josh, you kindly put and hidenavbar equals true on the end, which is another query parameter, but it's one that the Power Apps engine uses, which means that we don't get the pink bar at the top. So like we're looking at here with this pink bar at the top, it's missing from here. That's another query parameter, just to make it look a bit more professional and a bit less like it's a Power App.
The deeper, kind of more richer experience, isn't it? If you can remove that jar and purple bar from the top, and you can then just default to your own branding, which is really nice. So that's really cool to see, and I can see lots of use cases where that deep linking concept can translate to some really cool solutions as people start using code apps more. So that's really good to see.
Yeah. So thank you all for watching. If you have any things that you'd like us to cover in the future, please just put it in the comments and we'll be addressing that. Or if you have any questions on this, we're happy to answer them. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.